Let's have a conversation. Tell me what you think about the issues of the world. What kind of spice you wanna be? Tell me where you wanna travel. Do you believe in luxury? What's your hidden passion? What makes you so unique? Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole.
Greetings, I'm Nicole Everett, and this is Conversations with Nicole here at the Union Bank in Tallahassee, Florida. Today's featured guest is Mr. Sancho, the Leon County Supervisor of Elections, who will be retiring after 28 years of service. We will also have segments on education, entertainment, and health. So come on, let's get this conversation started. Today, my very special guest is the Leon County Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Sancho. Welcome, Ion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be on your show today.
Thank you. We're glad you're here. So tell me, how did you get started in the supervisor's business? What prompted you to become Supervisor of Elections?
The 1986 botched election that Jan Petrick conducted, in his first election that he was ever elected to conduct. Florida, Tallahassee has a long tradition of election problems. And you have to go all the way back to 1980 to the genesis of how I became the Supervisor of Elections.
Okay.
Because in 1980, our Supervisor of Elections had been Wilma Sullivan. She had been the Supervisor of Elections for probably longer than I am now, probably 30 plus years.
Wow.
And she announced on the morning of the last day of candidate qualifying that she was retiring. So she held a press conference at 11:30 on the Friday saying, I'm not going to seek re-election. And only one candidate during the 30 minutes that were left filed.
Really?
That was her son, John Sullivan. He filed for the Supervisor of Elections, and as nobody knew that Ms. Sullivan was not going to seek re-election, nobody else filed. So when the candidate qualifying period closed, only one candidate was on there, and that caused a community outcry of trying to pass your office to your family member without fairly giving notice to the public. So, under the laws for write-ins were different in 1980, and you had one more week to declare then as a write-in candidate. Well, 9 candidates came forth as write-in candidates to challenge John Sullivan. On election day, John Sullivan won. However, the 9 candidates garnered a majority of the votes. He received 40-some votes, but in a general election, the plurality wins. So he became the Supervisor of Elections. But for 4 years, that issue kind of festered in the community. Tallahasseans just didn't take kindly to the idea of somebody giving an office to their family member without having an election.
That's understandable.
So 4 years later, we had 2 candidates run to oust John Sullivan. A candidate that I would say was tremendously talented was the Senate staff director at the time for the Florida legislature. And she announced that she was going to run as a Democrat. And an individual by the name of Petrick filed to run as a Republican. And in the 1984 election, Jan Petrick defeated Lucretia Shaw Collins, who was the Democratic candidate in the primary, and went on to win the election.
Okay.
But that still left kind of a problem in people's mouth, because Lucretia Shaw Collins had been qualified. She had been the Senate staff director. She had written much of Florida's laws. She was defeated by the white candidate, Mr. Petrick, who had never been in an election in his life.
Okay.
So what happened was that in the very first general election, after Mr. Petrick won the election, was a disaster. The September primary of 1986, I ran as a candidate for the county commission. We had created newly created single-member districts in 1986, something that I had been very supportive of. And I had worked with then president of the NAACP, Anita Davis, to ensure that we would in fact get single-member districts. The judge imposed them on Leon County in the spring of 1986, and then I ran as a candidate. I had been a third-year law student at the time, so I was just 2 semesters from graduation. The idea of running a single-member district I wanted to help that session.
So 28 years later.
Well, 28 years later, and I would have to tell you that I ran in that election. That election was a disaster. A survey company here in Tallahassee, Kerr and Downs, which still does polling, indicated that on that day 5,000 Leon Countyans tried to vote and were turned away without recording a vote. I sued to have the election thrown out. And on the final day of the trial, Judge Hall said, "You have not been able to show me any precedents for throwing out an election." Well, I told the judge there had never been such a botched up election in the history of Florida. That's why we couldn't show you another piece of evidence of this. The judge told me that my solution was political and not legal.
Right.
So in 1988, I ran for that position. After having acquired some more credentials, I became the first non-election official ever to be certified as a voting machine programmer.
Okay, well let's talk about what's going on today. This is 2016. We got an election coming up.
Yes, we do.
Very important election.
The most important election, I think, in my lifetime. I will tell you that.
Okay, so what do you believe the Supervisor of Elections role is in this election coming up?
The Supervisor of Elections role is to ensure that every legal voter will have the ability to cast a vote in an accessible manner and have that vote counted as he or she wanted. That's the role of the Supervisor of Elections in a more general sense. I also oversee all of the candidate qualifying for local offices. So from county judges, county commissioners, city commission, county judges, all of those individuals I'm charged with keeping straight in terms of following the election law.
Okay, we have early voting coming up.
Early voting, yes, begins on Monday, October 24th. Early voting will run all the way through until Sunday, November the 6th. This is the first time we have had this kind of a schedule. This is the longest on a day schedule allowed by Florida law. We will employ the maximum amount of days so as to provide the best convenience for our citizens.
Okay, excellent. And where can people do their early voting?
There are 7 locations in the state of Florida, or excuse me, in Tallahassee. And we have sent out voting guides this week to every registered voter in Leon County. These voting guides basically explain how to early vote, how to vote by mail, where our 88 voting locations are, what kind of ID provisions that we require in the state of Florida. And basically, it also includes a goodbye or a farewell message from me, since this is the last message from the supervisor that I will have sent out to the citizens of Leon County.
So your last hurrah, huh?
It is, and I'll tell you, it's been a good run though. Early voting is in Florida because of me. I went to a conference after being elected in Texas in 1992 and saw that Texas had early voting, and the Secretary of State of Texas was crowing about how they had this program. When I came back to Florida and we had our presidential election in '92, and you know, I had pushed voting. Voting to me is very important. It's the most basic civil right. And that message took. And in the 1992 presidential election, we broke every record we had. 82% turnout of our registered voters turned out. But that meant that there were 2-hour lines in some of the larger precincts. So I knew that if I was going to push higher voter turnout, I had to have another way to accommodate these voters. They all couldn't show up on election day and vote. The lines would be too large. So having discovered something in the law called in-office absentee voting with no standards, my legal training kicked into gear, and I started allowing people to come in to vote in my office under this provision without standards. So we developed it in 1994. The state adopted Leon County standards for it in 2000, but made it not mandatory for counties. And then in 2002, after the botched 2000 election, the state made early voting mandatory.
Wonderful.
And now we do have the ability to have a large turnout, whether it's in Broward County, Miami-Dade, or in Tallahassee, and accommodate that without the kinds of long lines that we used to see and we saw 4 years ago when the state took away our ability to use early voting the way that we had been.
Okay, excellent. Well, you are to be commended for that, and we thank you for that. Let me ask you this. So if a voter has any trouble voting, where can they go?
Well, the very best thing to do is if you want to check your status right now to make sure you're ready to vote, you can go to my website and leonvotes.org/ready. That site will let you input your data to see what we have on you. Do we have your right name? Do we have your right party affiliation? Although that's not necessary in a general election because everybody gets the same ballot, unlike in a primary. And make sure that we have everything correct. If you've requested an absentee ballot, was it sent? We even track those.
So give me that website one more time.
leonvotes.org/ready. Our regular website is leonvotes.org.
Okay.
And we're very proud of it.
Okay.
We actually track mail ballots every day.
Okay.
And so I can tell you that if you want to know how many ballots we received for this election already, it's on the front of that website, and I'll tell you right now, it's over 8,000 people have already voted as you and I speak right now.
Wonderful. Well, that is all the conversation we have time for today. So I thank you, Mr. Sancho, for your time. Please stay tuned.
My name is Gregg Patterson. I'm here because I'm in charge of Move.Tallahassee, a walking group, and we in partnership with the Tallahassee Democrat and with the Florida Department of Health. Move got started originally by the former editor of the newspaper, Bob Gabordi. He had injured himself and gained some weight and decided to start walking, and he started putting in a paper and a blog that I'm going to go walk on this park, and people started coming out. So and they had t-shirts, and he started getting a pretty good following. And then when Bob took a job with a newspaper down on the southeast coast, he didn't want to leave Move, and he came to me and he said, "Will you take this over?" And I said, "Yes." And I remember on the way home saying, "What was I thinking?" But it's turned out to be just a great opportunity to meet people. We walk generally about twice a month, and we'll walk on a greenway or we'll walk in a neighborhood. And usually the walks are 3 to 4 miles. And so anybody that can feel free to want to join us, we have a lead walker for the fast walkers, a middle walker, and we have what's called a sweep. So to stay with the slowest person so no one's left behind. So to encourage people to come out. We usually get anywhere from 40 to 200 people. We just had a prancing pumpkin we did with the combination with the Florida Health Department. I think there was 300 people there. Generally we have about 70 to 80 people. The Move.Tallahassee is good, for your health, just to get out and get moving. But we have found a positive outcome is people meet, connect with others that they wouldn't otherwise. So we have people from all walks of life. We have retired, we have professionals, we have judges, we have students, state workers, and when they're out walking, there seems to be no agenda. So people are just talking and getting to know each other. And I look back and people are walking and smiling. And when they get to the end, a lot of times go, "How'd I get here so quick?" It's just because you're meeting people you wouldn't meet otherwise. And we're also going into places they may not go otherwise. We've had students say, "Oh, I didn't know this greenway was out here." Well, last weekend we walked in the Bond neighborhood, and a lot of people saying, I've never been to the Bond neighborhood. This is really a nice little neighborhood. So, and we walk through FSU, we walk through FAMU, just try to keep it interesting. And we have some of the best parks in the nation. I think there's 4,000 acres of parks. So we'll generally meet on a Saturday and between 8 and 9 o'clock, and the price is right. It doesn't cost anything. And if people want to join our email list, they just get an email every time we're going to walk. And we keep it simple. If you go to meetup.com and you join Move.Tallahassee, you'll get an email a couple days before our walk, and it'll say, here's where we're going to walk. We'll give directions. We'll talk a little bit about it. And then the newspaper also will publish it in the paper on the Friday before the walk. And sometimes we have flash walks. Like it's going to be a full moon, we go send out an email and go, flash walk, we're going to meet at Cascades tonight. You know, join us if you want. So we have people. I've done that twice, but both times it was cloudy.
Hello, I am Zachery Richardson, the academic doctor. The academic clinic was designed to inspire kids. I like to say aspirational. I want more people to understand the importance of early assessments, receiving tutoring, and then parental involvement. And so this is what caused me to create the academic clinic. Well, first and foremost, we like to go in and do an assessment, and once the assessment is completed, we'll participate in tutorial. We also love to go out to the school to check on our kids to make sure they're doing exceedingly well, and then we make sure that they're taking the right classes. And so we are a very holistic center designed to make sure that kids are going down the right career paths. Well, I thought it was very important that I kept reading and seeing things on the news about this pipeline to prison mentality. And the first thing I said, if we know there's a pipeline that exists, why don't we go ahead and cut it off? And I recognize we can cut it off through academics. I see so much academic paralysis in our community. And so I said, why don't I create a cure for the problem that exists? And the problem that exists is that our kids are not doing well. I see so many kids coming in with 3 9s and 3 7.5s that can barely read. And so I said, let's develop something really, really cool that will help our kids to be successful and to really do well in life. Number 1, whenever you're watching television at home, make sure you cut the TV on to closed caption for the hearing impaired. What it does allow you to read the message at the bottom, also increase your reading speed, and then it gives you somewhat of a generic overview of what the person is trying to say. So you can then make inferences by watching the program. That's number 1. Number 2, make sure that you're practicing throughout the day. Most kids feel they have to sit down at a table for 3 and 4 hours and to study. The reality is I want more kids to practice. If you recognize that the word practice has the word act in it, it's a physical act of doing stuff. And so one of those things we do is to have kids to practice more often. And third, make sure you get plenty of rest. Our kids are sleep deprived due to the fact of having all this technology, video games, cell phones, texting. So we must inquire and make sure or require our kids to get plenty of rest. So those are my 3 free tips. We can make assumptions all day about how well our kids are doing. A report card is not a good way to measure your child's success. I would like to ask parents to come out and have an assessment done to ensure that their kids are on the right grade level. If they're not, then we can help them get there. And for those who are, we like to be proactive and push that kid further. So we're not just a center designed to get those kids who's behind on track. We're there to push those kids who are already on track ahead.
Hello, I am Dr. Audra Pittman. I am currently the Executive Director of the Council on Culture and Arts, also known as COCA. I've been in this position about starting my 3rd year. COCA, I like to tell people we're like a chamber for the arts. So what the chamber does for local businesses, we do for artists and arts organizations. We partner with both the City of Tallahassee and Leon County to re-grant money to arts organizations making economic development. This year, we awarded about $1.25 million to local arts agencies in this area. It helps from everything from programming to operations, and we have new grants including marketing and a capital facilities matching grant program. We have approximately 300 members now, from individuals to artists to families and organizations. We're looking to increase that. But mostly, we're just all about the community and serving actually a 100-mile radius from Tallahassee. So a lot of people don't realize we serve a little bit of Georgia, a little bit of Alabama, down to the Gulf and around. So we really serve as an agency for all. Well, we participate in a lot of things. I think my focus these past couple of years has been partnerships. So we look at working with organizations like INI, the Institute for Nonprofit Innovation and Excellence. We look at working with the Chamber and the Office of Economic Vitality and really helping people understand that the arts mean business. You know, the arts aren't just for people who enjoy it, maybe do it every once in a while. Really, they brand a community, and really it's about quality of life. So we really partner with people. We offer programming for people. We'd like to connect resources. Currently, we are partnering with INI to offer workshops on everything from social media to marketing to running a nonprofit. We love to gather the community together to kind of figure out what are the needs of the community. I know there have been many iterations, from a performing arts center to an arts exchange and all sorts of iterations of things, but right now we're really focusing on meeting the needs of the community. And right now what we've heard is performance space. It's really difficult. We have a lot of venues, but a lot of them are owned by either Florida State, FAMU, and they have their priorities first. Even Theater Tallahassee has expressed we're busting at the seams. You know, we can't accommodate all the rehearsals and the shows at the same time. So we're really trying to meet the needs of the performing arts community and looking at a strategy or a way of helping that community. Oh my gosh, so many things. I believe arts are just important, not only for just thinking, you know, creative thinking and divergent thinking, but really helping people understand that, you know what, there's not always just one right answer when it comes to a problem. I think the arts help people work through problems. I think they help people think outside of the box. I think if people think about our economy and things that we do, products, we have most of the products that we need, but it's always the creative thinkers that take it to the next level. You know, we all have phones, but kind of people steer towards one phone or the other because of design. And I think people don't understand that the arts are everywhere, from the clothes you wear, the cars you drive, everything has design and creativity, and something behind it all relates to the arts.
Thank you for joining us for this week's conversation. And remember, don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. See you next week.
Have a conversation with Nicole.